Well, as you know, for most of last week, I was in the United Kingdom. We took a mission, a couple of dozen of the most enthusiastic Rebel News viewers from around the world, as far away as Australia and Canada, joined me in London for what turned out to be the largest free speech rally in UK history. And depending on whose estimates you believe, it may be the largest political demonstration ever of any sort in the UK. They say that the record was about 30 years ago, an anti-war rally when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. They say that had 750,000 people attending. Of course, many of those would have been sponsored by the Socialist Workers' Party and other professional groups, but there's no denying it was large. Well, Tommy Robinson's rally on Saturday was completely organic. There was no political party that had sitting politicians. There was no legacy media promoting it. So the numbers that were there were very authentic. It was enormous, and I was honored to participate. As you know, I was given 5 minutes to make my own remarks. And I saw Trevor Phillips and his analysis. Trevor Phillips, the former head of the Human Rights Commission in the UK. And I thought that he actually, for the mainstream media, was the fairest commentator of them all. He, in a way, said that some of the protesters didn't know exactly why they were there, but they had a feeling that something was wrong. Here, I'll let Trevor Phillips speak for himself. Here's his own words describing many of the people he bumped into at the rally. And even that alone is a bit of a miracle for a mainstream media journalist to actually go amongst the unwashed masses. That's something that the BBC certainly wouldn't do. Here's Trevor Phillips in his own words.
But I think that for those who oppose Robinson and his ilk, the most alarming aspect of the event was just how normal the vast majority of the marchers were. I spent an hour or two amongst them, and my own impression was that they were mostly the sort of people you'd meet in a country pub or in half-time queue for the loo at football or at a concert. There was a sprinkling of black and brown faces, and the event was brought to a close by a gospel group singing Jerusalem. All that must worry the traditional mass parties, Labour and Conservatives, now polling at less than 40% between them. They're draining support to parties like Reform and the Greens. And yet, a man recently out of jail, condemned as an extremist thug by most mainstream media outlets, can rally a demo the size of the entire population of Cambridge or Blackpool. A feat you couldn't imagine either Sir Keir Starmer or Kemi Badenoch pulling off anytime soon.
And I think he's right. And one of the issues that I think animates at least a portion of the people who came out was the two-tier justice that the UK seems to see. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of trouble in the UK. There's a lot of boiling public opinion. But it's almost as if police check your ideological leanings or sometimes even your religion before deciding whether to prosecute and to arrest and what sentence you'll get. Joining me now to talk about a crazy case from Stoke-on-Trent is Leilani Dowding, a social commentator who joins us now via Zoom. Great to see you, Leilani. Nice to meet you officially. I really enjoy following you on X, and thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much. I'm the same way. I follow you. I love Rebel News, and it's great to be on. Thank you for having me on here.
Well, it's our pleasure. I was following your account because I like you. You obviously survey a lot of things. You keep your eyes peeled. And I also get, I like the fact that you're a farm girl because, of course, Rebel News, we have a bit of a Western Canadian tradition. Our chief reporter, Sheila Gunn-Reid, is a farmer too. So I get a kick out of that. You have farming tips, which are good. But today was a very serious matter. Let me just show on the screen the story that you brought to your viewers' attention. Jailed Hanley is a locality. Jailed Hanley riot's dad was chanting, "Who the F is Allah?" Nathan Poole was getting his haircut when he found out about the protest. So Nathan Poole is the name of a 32-year-old dad, and he got swept up in some political protests. He himself, there's no evidence that he rioted. There's no evidence that he did anything violent. I've read this story twice, and they quote what he said. He said, "Who the F is Allah?" Of course, he used the swear, not the shorthand. And he said, "You are all effing nonces," which is the British way of saying a pedophile. He was chanting scum and he argued with police. So I'm not going to say I adore or admire any of those things. I think some of them are rude. I think it would probably be rude to say to a Muslim, who the F is Allah, just like it would be rude to say to a Christian, who the F is Jesus, I suppose. But rudeness is not a crime. But Nathan Poole, a father, is now sentenced to 30 months in prison. Leilani, what do you make of that?
See, this came to my attention because it's actually very close to where I live in Staffordshire. So it came up in the local news and I thought I'd look into it more. And, you know, we've seen Starmer tell President Trump that there is still free speech in Britain. And you can see there's not. Now, like you, I disagree that he should have said that. I mean, it's not something that that he should have said, that would have come out of my mouth. But free speech is free speech. And if he says that, he can have that opinion, he can ask that question, and he shouldn't have to go to jail for it. Now, what makes it a little cloudy is because Lucy Connolly, like Lucy Connolly, he actually pled guilty. But you know Tommy Robinson, and you know from him how things can be manipulated and you can be intimidated, and you may only have a duty solicitor giving you terrible advice because you can't afford your own solicitors. But 30 months for saying that and not actually being violent is crazy to me. There was a very famous BBC newscaster called Hugh Edwards. Now, he pleaded guilty for having child sex images and videos on his phone. He walked away free with a suspended sentence, didn't spend a single day in jail, and that was the judge's decision. And I've actually on my Twitter feed put a lot of other sentences like that, where people with the most heinous images on their phones have pled guilty or been found guilty, and the judges decide that they just need rehabilitation. So to me, 30 months, whether or not he pled guilty to disorder, it doesn't matter. I think a judge should see that he wasn't violent. He simply used very offensive words, and he should not have been locked up, especially not for 30 months. I mean, it's an insane amount of time for just being stupid in the moment and saying silly words.
Yeah. The article in Stoke-on-Trent Live, which is a local newspaper, it's written fairly straight. Like, it's not torqued one way or the other. So I'd like to quote from the article, because it has some facts that I think strengthen what you've just said there, Leilani. Quote, and I'm quoting now from the lawyer, there was no clear evidence that he was physically involved in any fisticuffs. Quote, he did not attack the police. He could not be seen to throw any missiles. He did not damage any property. He knows that by shouting the comments that he made, that he was part of the incident. But the judge found Poole had, quote, displayed hostility towards Islam. So no one said he actually threw anything or hurt anybody or threatened to hurt anybody. But what bothered the judge was, quote, hostility towards Islam. And I'm saying the words quote because I want you to know this is not my paraphrasing. You're allowed to be hostile to any religion. And by the way, you're allowed to be a Muslim who is hostile towards Islam. My great late friend Tariq Fatah was a powerful critic and reformist. And the idea that you cannot be hostile to an ideology, to a philosophy, and you get banged up for 30 months for that is shocking.
It is. It's shocking, Ezra, and it's very dangerous as well. You know, to see this happening right now while our Prime Minister blatantly lies, saying that we can all say what we want, is so dangerous. And it's a really, really bad slippery slope, I feel. And as I said, you know, yes, he pleaded guilty for saying those things, but we've seen, you know, he called someone a paedophile, right? No, he wasn't done for libel or anything else. And we're seeing actual paedophiles get less time. That's what we're seeing. That's how insane the system is in the UK. Now, we've also seen the most vile words being used in the last few days since Charlie Kirk's assassination. And the police haven't gone for those people because they've been offensive, because they've been hostile, because they've been rude to people that, you know, really liked and respected Charlie Kirk. We haven't seen police going over and arresting people for that kind of hostility. So it really is a one-way street with what we're seeing here.
I think you're right, and that's that two-tier thing. I mean, the thing is about this fella here, Nathan Poole. I don't think he's a prominent person at all. I think he's just a regular guy. The case of Lucy Connolly, and you referred to that a few minutes ago, she was the wife of a politician, a city councillor. So she had some access to power and access to media and access to public sympathy. But this is, as Morrissey would say, nobody's nothing. This is a person no one's heard of. And he was railroaded, it sounds like, with a lawyer who didn't fight hard for him, and 30 months in prison. I know in Canada, because there's a lot of street protests in Canada, if you were to do and say these things, most likely police would just shove you away. Yeah. Or if they were to arrest you, they would just put you in the police station for a few hours to cool you off and then let you go. And they would hope that that experience sort of dampened your ardor. That's what happened to me. I don't know if you know, Leilani. I was arrested and held for a couple of hours just because police had nothing to charge me with. They just wanted to move me away. I didn't like it one bit. But the idea of 30 months in prison, you're so right. Donald Trump coming to the UK and Keir Starmer again and again lying about free speech, or even using weird language saying we have a great history of free speech. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's the present and the future we're more worried about. Do you think Donald Trump is going to raise this issue, or do you think he's going to be on his diplomatic best behavior?
I hope he does raise the issue, and it really needs to be raised. God bless him. I watched Charlie Kirk when he came over, and he really fought Lucy Connolly's corner on a couple of news stations. And he said he was going to talk to the Trump administration on her behalf. And I believe that Lucy Connolly did actually meet with the Trump administration after she was let out of jail. So let's just hope that he remembers that and he does press Keir Starmer on it, because someone has to. We in the UK are pretty worried about it. And I'm in America right now. I'm actually in Los Angeles, and I've worn this hat that says "Make England Great Again." And I've actually had a lot of Americans come up to me and say, "God, don't you guys have a First Amendment? What's happening with your free speech?" Now, you wouldn't expect that in, really liberal Los Angeles, California, but it's happening. People have been asking me about it. And I think the world's getting smaller because of shows like yours, because of live streaming, social media. I think that, the message is getting out. We're seeing what's happening in Canada. We're seeing what's happening in the USA. And Canadians and Americans are watching what's hoping in the UK. So I really, really hope that Trump isn't on his best behavior. He shouldn't be. He usually isn't. So, hopefully he doesn't feel he has to be really polite to Starmer, and he really, kind of nails it in.